Hello everyone, welcome to Disney's Aladdin, a magical romp through the annals of Arabian mythology, and a film from the coveted Disney Renaissance age. Now, Disney's Aladdin was by all means a commercial success, becoming the first ever animated film to reach a $500 million mark in box office revenue. Additionally, earning a lengthy list of accolades ranging from Golden Globes to Emmys. Now, like any good Disney movie, it's also had its fair share of controversies, from racist caricatures to Anglicanized protagonists to even sexual subliminal messaging, most of which has been covered in intellectual discourse. Now, I wanted to take a unique angle on things, so I decided to look at something new. Specifically, this question: is the concept of the undeserving poor flawed, and does Disney's Aladdin argue against it? Now, a bit out of the blue, but let's get down to basics. Merriam-Webster defines the undeserving poor as poor people who are thought to be morally corrupt, and are thus thought to be not deserving of help. In the past, this has resulted in laws that outlaw homelessness and begging, resulting in mass incarceration in places like mid-18th century London. In our modern society in the US, a citizen is below the poverty line and is deemed worthy of being able to work, then they won't receive certain poverty benefits. The reasoning behind this is pretty simple. If you're poor and you can work and you choose not to work, it's because you're lazy and thus morally corrupt, and thus we really shouldn't be helping you get back onto your feet. Now, how does this line of reasoning play into Aladdin? Well, Aladdin is poor. He's a street rat. We know this from the very beginning of the movie. In fact, it's the premise of a lot of the conflict in the movie. He owns very little except the clothes on his back. He has to steal to eat to live, and in that regards, proves himself to be rather hardworking, ingenious, and clever. And yet, despite how poor he is, he's not morally corrupt. In fact, we see him to be a kind, compassionate, and selfless individual. In a key characterizing scene at the end of the opening chase reel, Aladdin gives up bread that he'd spend the last few minutes running, jumping, singing, and evading guards for, to two street urchins that are rummaging through trash for something to eat. And he does so with little hesitation. Later in the movie, he's deemed worthy of entering the Cave of Wonder, a stash of gold and wealth, and yet, despite how poor he is, he doesn't touch a single bit of it, because he has a deal with Jafar to retrieve the lamp before he takes his share. And later, when Aladdin does free Genie from said lamp, he agrees to use his third wish to free him permanently from his imprisonment. And when he does renegade on that promise, it's not out of selfishness, but rather out of self-doubt. Now, some might say Aladdin's thievery and lying and crushing of Genie's dreams prove him to be a bad role model, and prove that he is morally corrupt. After all, if he can put so much effort into stealing some bread, why doesn't he just get a job and pay for himself? Which, in a perfect society, would be a valid point of reason. Now, the thing is, Agrabah isn't exactly a perfect society. The minimum penalty for stealing an apple is getting your hand cut off, and it doesn't exactly seem to have a statute of limitations. What likely ended up happening was the younger Aladdin stole some bread because he was hungry, and from that day on, he's at risk at becoming handless. Which also means that if he did get a job interview, they'd cut off his hand in the job interview, which isn't exactly a worthy trade-off in my book. What's more is he proves himself to be the exact opposite of morally corrupt. The entire movie is centered around him overcoming his faults and becoming worthy of marrying the princess. In fact, the Sultan, the highest law in the land, changes the legal system so that Aladdin could marry Jasmine, his very own daughter, because he himself deems Aladdin worthy of doing so. So where does that leave us? Well, it gives us a character that by all means is a great person. Somebody who's kind and compassionate and selfless and caring. Somebody who's poor not out of their own choice, but because of their birth and the consequences of their society. Extend this to our modern society, and a lot of good people, a lot of people like Aladdin, are left in a similar position. Because they're poor, people consider them to be bad. And as a result, we as a society don't do anything to help them back onto their feet. This concept of the undeserving poor, that the poor are morally corrupt, doesn't fit in with Aladdin, doesn't fit in with a lot of people. and as a result is fundamentally flawed in its assumption. Which would be fine, except that this concept is used too often to justify not helping people back onto their feet. This concept ruins the lives of those who fall into poverty, and it ends up being all too often a dead end for a lot of people. And Aladdin shows this. Aladdin is a great person, but if it weren't for the magic of genie, then he would have never made it out of poverty. But then again, that's just food for thought. I'd like to know what you guys think. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and well, have a good day.